Wala. Nawala yung ano, sandali ah. Picture capture. Mali. Ayan, bumalik na ako na. Bumalik ko na ba? Okay. Ayan, okay na.
Welcome back! Let's review the first part of the data analysis process. First, we form a business question, then get the data and explore the data sets. This is what we did in first chapter. In this chapter, we will focus our efforts on cleaning the data in order to prep it for analysis. As mentioned earlier, cleaning and preparing data can be time-consuming and very detail-oriented. While it's tempting to jump straight into analysis, please believe me that you will end up creating more work for yourself and starting over multiple times.
Hello.
Or worse, you could develop a recommendation based on bad data. So now it's time to get our hands dirty and prep the Kickstarter dataset. We'll start with some text or string cleaning.
Thank you, Justin.
One of the most popular operations performed on text fields is concatenating, which joins text strings together in a new cell. For example, it's common to have first names and last names in separate columns, but it can be useful to combine them. Concatenate can do that. Taking a look at our dataset, notice that the project ID is separate from the project names. Let's join them together using concatenate. The syntax is equals concatenate, open parentheses, followed by the text or cells you want to combine with each other, separated by a comma, then close parentheses. In this case, let's join A2 and B2. How does that look? Wouldn't it be better if we added a dash between the ID and name? We can do that by editing the formula, adding the hard-coded text between A2 and B2. You have to put the desired text in between double quotes. In this case, we added a space, dash, space as the second argument. Now we can more easily distinguish the ID from the name. There are three functions that all work similar ways, but with different outcomes. Whenever a field has data collected in an open text box, like most online forms, you quickly observe how many variations in capitalization people employ. Depending on your need, it's possible to standardize the formatting to all lowercase, all uppercase, or improper capitalization when you capitalize the first letter of each word and the rest is lowercase. Not surprisingly, the functions are lower, upper, and proper respectively. Here's what happens when we apply each of these functions to the city field. When the lower function is used, there are no capitals. When upper is used, all letters of the city name are capitals. And when using proper, only the first letter of each word is. capitalized. Now you give it a try.
Thank you, Justin. Okay, so actually you can see this a lot of these Excel hacks on TikTok. Okay, so joining text strings. So we're discussing data analysis in Excel, and previously we've done exploring data. We're done with the data types and the rounding of values. So now we have to prepare our data, and in doing so, okay, so joining text strings. So in the data that we'll be able to here's the data on the right side, the Excel file, the spreadsheet. So here we will be able to find information about the city and state the project was started from. There are 2 cities called Vancouver in our data. Let's check on the structure. The ID text. So function name and worksheet created. Okay, so it says here that there are 2 cities called Vancouver in our data. One is in Canada and the other is in the US. So there is a Vancouver city in Canada, and also there's a Vancouver in the United States. So let's create a column that contains the combined information of the city and state. That way there won't be any confusion about which city is meant. So for the instructions, go to cell P2. Cell P2. Okay, it says here Orlando, Florida. Then join the city and state together. Make sure to add a comma and space between the fields. Okay, so we have to use the function concatenate to be able to join the 2 columns. Okay. Today my life is true. Things I promise you over and over again. When I hear you call. Anong gagawin? Okay, go to cell P2 and join the city. Concatenate N2, the city and the state together. Okay. So P2, N2 is the city and followed by okay. Then O is the state. Okay. So what does the new column look like for the project with ID 6? So we have fine and find 6338. Of course, you can always just copy and paste this, but as I've said before, with this GUI of datacamp, it's not allowed to. We're not allowed to copy and paste. Where is the love? Let's see if we can copy with the ID. Okay. So with here, with Excel, it's possible. But why can't I? Okay, so this is the record. Wait. Los Angeles, California. Hi, hello. Thank you for sharing the stream. I hope I can poke you. Okay, so capitalizing words. The Kickstarter data contains information about the name of the different projects. In this case, the games, the project names appear to use all styles of capitalization. Let's make them have just the first letter of each word capitalized. So for us to be able to do that, previously it was said that using the lowercase, of course, the column would be in lowercase, and using the uppercase function, it would be in uppercase. But using the proper, let's, um, let's check again.
Welcome back! Let's review our efforts on cleaning the data in order to prep it for analysis. As mentioned earlier, cleaning and preparing data can be time-consuming and very detail-oriented. While it's tempting to jump straight into analysis, please believe me that you will end up creating more work for yourself in starting over multiple times. Or worse, you could develop a recommendation based on bad data. So now it's time to get our hands dirty and prep the Kickstarter dataset. We'll start with some text or string cleaning. One of the most popular operations performed on text fields is concatenating, which joins text strings together in a new cell. For example, it's common to have first names and last names in separate columns, but it can be useful to combine them. Concatenate can do that. Taking a look at our dataset, notice that the project ID is separate from the project names. Let's join them together using concatenate. The syntax is equals concatenate, open parentheses, followed by the text or cells you want to combine with each other, separated by a comma, then close parentheses. In this case, let's join A2 and B2. How does that look? Wouldn't it be better if we added a dash between the ID and name? We can do that by editing the formula, adding the hard-coded text between A2 and B2. You have to put the desired text in between double quotes. In this case, we added a space, dash, space as the second argument. Now we can more easily distinguish the ID from the name. There are three functions that all work similar ways, but with different outcomes. Whenever a field has data collected in an open text box, like most online forms, you quickly observe how many variations in capitalization people employ. Depending on your need, it's possible to standardize the formatting to all lowercase, all uppercase, or improper capitalization when you capitalize the first letter of each word and the rest is lowercase. Not surprisingly, the functions are lower, upper, and proper respectively. Here's what happens when we apply each of these functions to the city field. When the lower function is used, there are no capitals. When upper is used, all letters of the city name are capitals. And when using proper, only the first letter of each word is capitalized. Now you give it a try.
Okay, continue. Cell D2. Let's see, maybe Lambo. What is D2? Ano naman yung dito? Thank you, Jasmine. Thank you. Okay. So how do I read that? Sushi wasabi. My data is very slow. Okay. So capitalize only the first letter of each word. What Excel function did you use to accomplish this task? So I think I have to use the proper. Okay. There's the same capitalization style, but this column here, D2, has no. Okay. Then, using the upper and lower case, there are two other columns in the data that could use some same capitalization love. What's that? So there are two other columns in the data that could use some capitalization love. I don't know what's capitalization love. Okay. So the currency codes need to be in uppercase letters, the currency. Let's check on the structure. So, here's the currency column and okay. So the and the values in the stop pick column needs to be in lowercase. So let's fix that. What's the staff pick? Okay. So the stop is here. It says that it should be in lowercase. So for the instructions, convert the currency values to uppercase in column K. So column K is here. So should be equal uppercase. Should be upper. Then the currency. Okay. It's automatic. So as you can see here, it's now in uppercase. Then convert the staff peak values to lowercase in column W. Actually, this is the easier part. Lower. Wait, lower. Wait, what happened? Lowercase. Okay. Lower. Then B. What happened? Ayaw. Lower. Converts string. Yes. Static. So there's a problem here. Wait, why does things... Okay. Then what would be the result of the following formula? Concatenate L2. What's L2? 15047, then space, then K2. K2 is okay. I think it's and proper pledge. Okay, so it should be this 15,047 space USD. US dollars, and then proper pledge. Okay.
Let's continue talking about cleaning text fields. Up until now, we modified all the characters in the cell, but sometimes you want to isolate a piece of the text string. Excel has many functions to help. We've been using the terms text and string interchangeably, but it might help to think about text fields as a chain where each link represents a location that can be anything, a character, symbol, or space, etc. So if we want to look at this project name, 3dmykicks-3dmykicks.com, how many links are there? You could count each element one by one. But that is difficult and tedious. Luckily, Excel has created a function for this. This function is called len, as in length. The syntax is equals len, open parentheses, the cell or text string you want to count, close parentheses. The result for this project name is 27. By itself, this information is interesting but not particularly useful. However, we can now use it in combination with other functions to extract only the portion of text we want. Looking again at 3dmykicks-3dmykicks.com, if we want just the project name, not including the website, we can use the left function. The syntax is equals left, open parentheses, then the cell to extract from, followed by how many characters to extract starting from the left. In this case, it becomes equal left, open parentheses, cell B2, len, open parentheses, in double quotes, 3dmykicks, close parentheses, twice.
Okay, so left, B2, length, okay. So it should start from the left. That's why it's left. The function used was left. Then the first parameter is the column. The cell of the column. So that's why it's B2. And then the second parameter is the length of the characters with reference to the first parameter. Okay.
You might think this is a lot of work for something you could extract manually without any functions for a single instance. However, what happens if you have some imported data that looks like this? Clearly, there is something funky with the raw data, but it's easy to fix in Excel. Let's extract just the state information, leaving off the nonsense data. What's the length of the bad string? 7. Now let's use this information as we build the nested formula. Equal left open parentheses, M2 len open parentheses, M2 close parentheses, minus 7 close parentheses. The reason we are subtracting 7 from the total...
Wait, okay, once again, it's left, then M2 is the column, the cell, M is the column, N2 is the row, so M2 is the cell, and then the next parameter is length of M2 minus 7. So we have to get the length of the cell M2, then so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 plus 7.
length is because each cell varies in length, but consistently has the bad string 7 spaces in length. We want the result to include everything to the left. The next function we'll discuss is right. It has a similar syntax to the left function. The big difference is that it starts counting the spaces from the right side instead of the left. The last common text function we'll discuss is substitute. As you can probably guess, the handy feature will look for a specified string within a cell and replace it with new text. Why is this useful? As you prepare data for analysis, it's vital to make sure formatting is consistent. For example, as we look through the project names, notice how some use a dash and others use a column to separate title and subtitle. The syntax for substitute starts with the cell reference, the old text you look for wrapped in double quotes, then the new text you also want wrapped in double quotes, and finally you can specify how many times in a cell you want to modify the old text. Let's use substitute to change all the colons to dashes. Equal substitute open parentheses B2 double quotes colon double quotes dash double quotes close parentheses. Notice the change? Also note that if there was no colon in the name, like the second row, then the cell didn't change at all. Now try out these string functions for yourself.
Bago pala nag-start. Okay, so counting characters in Excel. So the data includes the source URL for each of the projects in the column U. So let's check on the column U. How sad. The column U is here. It's the source URL. So this URL refers to the web page where the data was scraped. So each source link has the following piece of text in common. So all of these source URL has this uh, text on its URL. So it all starts with https kickstarter.com discover categories games. So it's under the games games subfolder. Okay, so let's find out how many characters are in this piece of text. So go to column B. TUV. Where is the column B? Here is the column B. Then count the number of characters in can I copy this? Copy and paste. Let's see if I can paste the I'm having problems with the GUI. As usual, it doesn't allow me to paste. I want to paste because it doesn't allow me to paste. So I have to encode it. The actual learning on the actual Excel application would be much easier, because here we're not allowed to, in this GUI we're not allowed to copy and paste. So I have to encode it, but in real application, in real Why can't I paste here as well? What's the problem with my Excel? Copy. Kickstarter. Okay, I just counted it because the function wouldn't display the answer. Okay, so extracting text. In the previous exercise, we found out how many characters were in the first part of the source URL. That information on its own isn't that interesting. However, now we can use this to extract the portion of the text that is relevant to us. What's relevant is the information after the common text on the source URL. Counting characters talaga. Extracting text, okay. So in this exercise, our job is to extract only the last part of the URL, which contains information about the category. We know the number of characters that we want to extract from the right equals the total length of the URL string minus the hello Fresh Ann, thank you. Hello, good evening. Okay. minus the length of the string that comes before the slash. So for the instructions, we have to go to cell W2. Cell W2 is the it says here that this column is the source URL category. So to be able to extract the category from the source URL column, which is the column U on the spreadsheet. It says here that we have to extract only the part of the source URL that comes after the last slash. So what is the value for the source URL category column for Raccoon Tycoon, the Fat Cat expansion? So name. Hey, thank you for the snack, Miss Anne, Fresh Anne. So once again, I have to check. I have to search for this. Copy and then find. How can I filter? Text filter. Then paste. Apply. Okay. So the data is here, and then after tabletop after, so it's tabletop 20 tabletop 20 games, tabletop. Okay, so okay, so replacing characters. Actually, I'm not doing the exercise, I'm just eliminating the. Okay. Notice that the category was extracted from the source URL. Still looks a little bit messy. So it contains the following characters. The, what do you call this? The percentage 20. This is how URLs encode spaces. So let's clean the text by replacing all instances of the percentage 20 with a space. So now we have to replace the text. Go to cell X2. Actually, I thank you, Fresh Ann, for poking back. What's the instruction? X2. Okay. X2. We have to replace. Okay. So if I remember it right, the function used for replacing characters is substitute. If I remember it right. Okay, substitute. Then I'm not sure. Old text. The text should be or maybe can I just choose the column, the cell, then old text is $20. I think I'm I'm typing it very slow. Okay, then we have to okay. Wait. What happened? Okay. Ay, my goodness. Doing this on the actual is much more okay. I think so we have the question here is what category does Super Dude Jump belong to? So again, I have to check on which cell does this belong to. So it's on the PUVW tabletop games. Here is the category. So what I'm doing here is extracting text from the source URL category. So this is how we extract data. The URL is the text we can see on the on our browser. That's the URL. So how to extract the source? We have to eliminate the common since we already know that all of these source URL category has the same characters for the first 54 letters. We're only getting the category that is different, that can differentiate the source. Okay, So it's under the tabletop games. Then preparing data.
In this video, we'll learn all about working with date data. If your boss asks you to look at the project data by date, how would you interpret this request? Would you look at the data by launch date? Would you want to look at how long a project campaign ran? Maybe look at trends by year, month, day of the week. There are so many ways to think about dates in data analysis. It can be very useful to prepare the data set in the cleaning stage to be ready to look at it in any of these ways. First, let's look at the age of each project. We don't need a special function for this. It's as simple as subtracting the launch date from the deadline. For the first row of this example, that means E2 minus D2. This returns the number of days the project was active. But what happens if we want to know how many days ago the project ended? There are two functions that look the same on the surface, but give slightly different answers: now and today. These functions don't have any arguments, but we do need to include the open and closed parentheses so that Excel knows we want the function. Let's try them out. First, try now minus the deadline. Then in the next cell, today minus the deadline. What looks different? How come we have partial days in the now column? It's because the now function returns the exact date and time, whereas the today function only returns the day. Depending on the date format you're working with, one may be better than.
So this is the syntax for the date. Okay, now and today.
The other. In our situation, we don't have any time data, so the today function works best. When analyzing date data, you can treat the dates in one of two ways: continuous or discrete. Continuous dates represent information over time, such as January 1st to January 31st. However, when we want to analyze date groups by month, day of the week, quarter, etc., this requires discrete date values so that you can use the unit of time as categories. The easiest way to transform date columns into discrete groups is to extract the relevant part of the date into a new column. The two most common units are months and day of the week. Excel has functions that can help easily do this: month and weekday. Please note the result from these functions is numbers representing the month or day of the week. The syntax for month function is very simple. You just have to include the date you want to extract the month from between parentheses. The months go logically from 1 for January to 12 for December. Later on in the course, we will learn how to show the actual month names. The weekday function works in a similar fashion. It takes the date as the first argument, and then return type as an optional argument, as denoted by the square brackets. But what does this optional argument do? The starting day for weekdays can differ depending on where you're located or your business need. Excel has considered this, and you can specify which day you want to start the week with. If you enter 1 or leave the argument blank, the week starts with Sunday. If you want to use, for example, Monday as the start of the week, the second argument in the formula should be 2. Now you give it a try.
So using the system date, uh, in Excel there are two functions that give information about the current date and time, the now and today. We want to figure out how many hours have passed since you want to figure out how many hours have passed since you were born. Your birth time could look something like this. Okay, so example here is January 12, 1993 and 3:15 a.m. I'm assuming that it's a.m. Okay, so you can use the sheet on the right to try out both functions. So what function should be used to calculate the time difference? This. Okay. I think now is the answer, but I'm not sure why this. Should be. It should be now, but now is now and forever. I will be your. Why? Couldn't. How I can rest my voice and always be sure. Anyway, the answer is now. If we want to extract or get the time elapsed is equals should be it should be the minus should be now minus now I can rest my worries. It's giving a wrong answer. Ayaw. I think it should be the time elapsed should be dapat should be now less yung date of birth. almost 60%, and still have to. So working with dates. It's time to start working with some dates. The Kickstarter data header. In the Kickstarter data, there is information about when a project was launched. On top of that, you can also see what the deadline is for a project. Between these two dates, backers can pledge money to the project. This time period is called the funding period. Okay, so the deadline less the launched at is the funding period. Okay, Kickstarter allows for a funding period anywhere from 1 to 60 days. So let's find out what the funding period was for the games in our data. So we have to, for the instructions, we have to go to cell H2. And cell H2 is the funding period. Okay. Naturally. Thank you, Jasmine. Thank you for staying. Okay. Go to cell H2. Determine the difference between column G, I think it's column G, the deadline, and the column F, which is launch at. Use cell reference when creating your formula. Game. HIJKHI 20. The funding period is 20 days. So it's 20 days. Finding the day of the week. So far I'm checking on what we have done. It's navigating the worksheet, exploring data in Excel, looking for exact matches, then trimming our data, sorting the table, then understanding data types, classifying data types, changing the text, and rounding the values. Then we have cleaning text data, joining text strings using concatenate, capitalizing words using the upper and lower case and the proper functions, extracting the text from cells, counting characters, extracting text, replacing characters with the substitute function, then preparing the date data using the now and today functions, using the system date, and working with dates. Then now we're on finding the day of the week. Just check on this. But who's counting, choosing the right count function, learning count, counting blank cells. The if function, performing logical test, taking if to the next level, conditional aggregate, aggregations, finding, counting. I think what's interesting here is only the lookup. The other topics are all okay. Let's back to the course. Okay, so finding the day of the week. Imagine that we only want to extract part of the date information, like on what day of the week a project was launched, for example. We can easily do this with one of the functions that was introduced in this video. So the function will return a number that needs to be mapped to one of the weekdays. By default, Excel will assume that Sunday is day 1. So let's change that and map Monday to day 1. Okay, so we can do that also. But because by default, counting on the days of the week, by default, Sunday is the first day and Saturday is the 7th day. So but then again, it says here that we can change that and map Monday to day 1. So for the instructions. But I guess uh, maybe this is just for what do you call this? Just to inform us that we can change the mapping. But then I think it would be better to go with the standard, because by standard or by default, Sunday is the first day of the week. And I think that changing that or changing the mapping can somehow lead to some confusions. But then again, maybe it's just for illustration purposes or just to inform us that we can change the mapping of the day of the week. So once again, if it's just for illustration purposes or for informing us that we can do that, let's proceed with the lesson. So go to cell I2. What's the cell I2? HI. So launch at day. Then insert the day of the week. The projects were launched with Monday being the first day. So how do I do that? Then what day of the week was longest number ever written launch? Wait, what's the passing parameter for weekday? Serial number? Is the serial number? Is this the serial number? I think it's not working at all. How do I do that? Pattern type 1? I'm not sure. A weekday, wait. I'm not sure about this, but if Monday if Monday is the first day and it says here the 2, then should be Tuesday. No, you need to use the values in the launch at column. Launch at column. So weekday H6 F F. Launch on a Thursday, but actually I did not know how to I just deducted one day because it says here that 5 and 5 supposed to be a Friday, but since we gonna assume that the first day is Monday instead of okay. I'm not sure if I'm doing this right. I think it would be better to do this on an actual Excel application. Okay, so figuring out the month. Let's do the same for the month. Now, remember that in Excel, the months are numbered logically, with January being 1 and December 12. Okay. January is equals to 1 and December is equals to 12. So for the instructions, go to cell J2. What is cell J2? Here, launch at month. Insert the month the projects were launched. So equals just a function of the month. The month and the launch at F6, it should be F6. And so it is launch. Why? Wait. Man launch at. Why does it? Can't find tab. Why is it launch at deadline launch at 8 8 8 should be August, but why does the return value here is 10, but I think it should be in August because the launch at date. I'm just doing some common logic here. I'm not using this at all. I'm not sure why does it returns. Maybe there's something wrong with my 10. So this is the right month, then now should be Okay, so I think there's something wrong with this. There's something wrong. There's something wrong with the GUI here, because doing the exercise on a spreadsheet or on the Excel app itself generates the right, gives me the right answers, but I'm not sure what the problem is with this interface. Okay, so
welcome back. It's time to cover what I consider the most important function in Excel. Up until now, we have focused all our efforts on cleaning and preparing data within one data set. However, what VLOOKUP allows us to do is to incorporate data from another data set and then plug it into our working data set. This is why it's so important. In the last lesson, we added a column of the month from the launch date field. Let's use VLOOKUP to make those numbers into actual month names. We will need a new table of the list of months and numbers. See how I added the new tab called Date Tables. Before we put the function into practice, let's take a closer look at the syntax, since it has more arguments than the previously used functions we've covered. What the heck does VLOOKUP mean? Vertical lookup. As the name implies, when you merge data together, Excel looks for the matching value between two columns or verticals, one in each data set. Don't worry if you don't understand that yet. We'll go into more detail looking at each argument that makes up the function. The first argument is the lookup value. This is the value on the destination dataset to match on. Next is the table array. This refers to the range of cells where the value is located that you will bring into the destination dataset. An important note to remember, the first column of the table array has to be the matching values. This does not have to be in column A, but just the first column in the range. The third argument on the formula is colnum. This refers to the number of the column of the data you want to return. The last element is called range lookup. It's a logical value, meaning you need to enter true or false.
hello, good evening. Thank you for the snacks. And I hope I can poke you back. I want to stay safe. I love you. Look up value. And people array. I'm not liking this lesson here on Excel, because I think there are some errors on using the GUI, I'm not sure why, but
True means Excel will look for an approximate match. It assumes that your tables are sorted by the matching values and it puts in the nearest value. It is not used very often. More often we use false, which provides the result only if there is an exact match. Before we apply the VLOOKUP to our Kickstarter data, let's make sure we have matching columns for the month numbers. Column F, month, in the Kickstarter table, and column D, month number, in the months table on the Date Tables tab have the same values. In our example, the lookup value is F2, the specific month number for that row. Next, the data range is columns D and E from the Date Tables tab. Remember, we need to list the full range of data for both the matching value and the desired data. Since the data is located on another tab within the workbook, Excel automatically adds the tab name in single quotes and an exclamation point when you click on the range. The third argument is the column number. Column D is number 1 and column E is number 2. So we need to put in column 2. We want to match the month number exactly, so we will use false for the last argument. Now look at the Kickstarter data and notice all the month names. Before we practice VLOOKUP, let's make our dataset more efficient and calculate the month by name in one nested formula. Which argument in the VLOOKUP function would we put the month function? If you said lookup value, you're right. So the formula will look like this. Whenever possible, it's best to combine functions together to limit the number of columns in your dataset. VLOOKUP can be intimidating the first time you try it on your own, but have no fear. If you take it one argument at a time, it will work. The possibilities are limitless for how much data you can incorporate into your analysis from different tables. Give VLOOKUP a try.
okay, with the VLOOKUP, we can combine information from different datasets. So to be able to do that, there must be a common field between the datasets. So we can see that a new sheet named exchange rate table was added. So was added. This currency rates table Let us compare an amount in the US dollar to other currencies. So what column do these datasets have in common? It's the exchange rate. Exchange rate. What? Currency, original currency. Okay, currency information appears in both datasets. That means that this is the data we can use with the lookup. Okay. Why? Possible answers. So, working with range lookup, one of the arguments of VLOOKUP is range lookup. So it's important to understand what this argument does. So if the range lookup is entered as false, which best describes the results? Excel will look for an appropriate match. I think Excel we look for an exact match. We want to get the result only if there is an exact match. This means setting range lookup to false. I'm getting hungry. Using the lookup. So now let's calculate the pledge amount in US dollars. To be able to do this, you'll need to add exchange rate data to the table. You can use VLOOKUP to achieve this. Remember the arguments for this function. The search key, the range, the index, and the range lookup. The search key is the lookup value. So it's also the search key. The lookup value or the search key, and then the table array is the range. Then the column number is the index. And then the range lookup is still the range lookup. So determines how the data is matched, with true being an appropriate match by default and false an exact match. But usually we'll be looking for the exact match. Okay, so after we have calculated the imported exchange rate column, we'll be able to determine the pledged US dollar amounts. So for the instructions, use VLOOKUP to add exchange rates in column O. O, is this an O or a 0? But I think the column names here are in letters, so in alphabet, so it should be O. Column O. Okay. Using this information, calculate the pledge amount in dollars in column Q. Getting hungry. Why? What's this? have to use the VLOOKUP. VLOOKUP. Then the value. I'm getting hungry. I don't. You can use command control plus F to search for the project ID in the sheet. The function takes as the first argument command control F. Project ID. What's the project ID? This is the project ID. Getting hungry. Where's the project ID? Is the project ID the ID? No. So I have to check here. Paste. And search apply. And secrets of the world. So it's here. Amount pledge. What is the USD pledge? USD pledge. But I'm not using lookup here. It's 87,445. So what's the answer? Instructions. To O, to O, 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 O. Pledge. 87,445. Pledge in US dollars equals. How do I do this? The pledge USD column. I can't do this because we look up. Look up value. It's column number. And then global array. Exchange rate. US dollar. Gusto ka na lang. Namula. Okay. Okay, so it should be in Hong Kong. So should be divided by the currency of Hong Kong. I'm not very satisfied with this chapter.
Welcome back to the
Okay.
third and final chapter. Let's check in on where we are in the data analysis process. So far, we have spent a lot of time exploring, cleaning, and preparing our Kickstarter data. Now we're going to do some analysis so we can better understand what makes a good Kickstarter project. This lesson will focus on counting. When doing analysis, it's important to understand how many records or values you have, and even look at how many blank cells you have can be informative. In Excel terms, count refers to the number of cells. However, there are a few variations of the count function that count based on different criteria. Let's take a closer look at each of these. Let's start with the basic count function. The function counts the number of cells that contain numbers in a given range. So pay attention to the data types in cell range of interest. Count only counts numeric values. Here you can see the syntax as an example. The COUNTA function counts the number of cells that are not empty in a range regardless of the type of data it contains. The syntax is very similar to that of count. Here you can see an example. Lastly, there is count blank. As the name implies, it counts the number of blank or empty cells. Here you can see the syntax and an example. A few special notes on count blank. Cells with formulas that return double quotes twice, empty text, are counted. Cells with 0 values are not counted. Let's apply all these functions to the same data range, namely the first 10 records of the goal and city fields. Does anything look wrong with the results? That's right. The count blank function hasn't captured all the supposedly blank cells. You should be mindful that sometimes people enter a space when inputting data into a database instead of leaving a field blank. When you discover this, you can take a step back from analyzing the data and go back into cleaning mode. As we covered in Chapter 1, you can use the trim function to ensure blank-looking cells are actually blank. In the real world, the data analysis process is not strictly linear. You often have to go back to clean or prep the data, or even go back further to refine the business question. Let's start counting.
So I'll wrap up here today. I'll just continue on my next stream probably tomorrow. Okay. So far we have tackled exploring data and preparing the data. Now we have to analyze the data. But I guess so that's all for today, and let me thank each and everyone who have joined me on my stream, and I hope to see you again. I think I'm gonna make an tutorial on Excel. I think I'm going to make tutorial on Excel functions using the Excel application alone, not using any GUI or any other app here, because I think it would be more more informative because using right now I'm using a course outline, or I'm doing this uh, under a course from datacamp, but there are some functions that I cannot I can do uh, more easily. I can easily do on the Excel application alone without using the third party. So, but again, to be able to get the certification, I guess I have to continue with this. But what I'm trying to say is doing I'll be doing a stream just using the Excel function application alone without the third party application. Okay, so that's all for now, and thank you everyone.